Emma brushed more snow away, her fingers stinging from the cold. At first, she thought it might be a frozen branch or a rock, but as the shape emerged, she realized it was neither. It was a small wooden box, its corners softened by time, its surface cracked but intact. The storm had tried to bury it, to keep it hidden, yet here it was, revealed in her moment of despair, as if it had been waiting just for her. Her breath puffed in the air as she picked it up. It wasn't heavy, but it felt important. The kind of weight that wasn't measured in pounds but in meaning. She ran her fingers over the wood, brushing away ice crystals, noticing the faint carvings along the lid, swirls and initials too faded to read in the dim light. The lock was rusted, long broken, so the box sat stubbornly shut, keeping its secrets close. Emma's first instinct was to laugh at herself. Really? She thought. Here I am, stranded in the middle of nowhere, freezing, and I'm playing treasure hunter. But as she stood there, clutching the box, a strange warmth flickered in her chest. For hours, maybe days, she had felt nothing but heaviness, but now she felt something else, curiosity. And that tiny spark was enough to keep her moving. The wind howled, urging her to find shelter. She scanned the horizon, her eyes catching on the faint outline of an old shed tucked just beyond the tree line. It looked abandoned, its roof sagging under the weight of snow, but it was shelter nonetheless. Hugging the box to her chest, she trudged toward it, every step an effort, the storm clawing at her legs. By the time she reached the shed, her body was shaking uncontrollably. The door groaned on its hinges as she pushed it open, snow spilling in behind her. The inside smelled of dust and wood rot, but it was mercifully dry. She shut the door, sank against the wall, and pulled the box into her lap. The storm raged outside, but inside, Emma felt a strange calm. She had no idea what the box held, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't thinking about what she'd lost or how alone she was. She was thinking about what she might discover. And that single shift, curiosity over despair, felt like the first crack of light breaking through a long winter's night. The night had fallen heavy, and the storm was unforgiving. Snowflakes hurled themselves through the air like shards of glass, stinging Emma's cheeks as she stood beside her silent car on the side of a lonely country road. The hood was up, but she knew nothing of engines, only that hers had coughed, sputtered, and then died with a final, cruel sigh. She pressed the power button on her phone again, but the dim glow told her what she already feared, barely one bar of signal, barely a sliver of battery. She could call no one. She could go nowhere. For a moment, she leaned against the car and closed her eyes, willing the storm to soften, for the world to give her even the smallest mercy. But the wind only roared louder, pushing against her, tugging at her scarf, seeping deep into her bones. She pulled her coat tighter, but the chill found its way in, an unwelcome reminder of how hollow she felt inside. It wasn't just the storm that had left her stranded. Life had been breaking down around her for months. A job she once loved gone. Friends who had drifted away when she needed them most. A relationship that had ended not with a fight but with silence, an emptiness that lingered louder than words ever could. She had tried to be strong, to keep moving, to tell herself things would get better. But standing there, her breath turning to mist in the frozen air, she felt what she had avoided admitting, she was utterly forgotten. Left in the cold, not just by the world, but by hope itself. Her hands trembled as she shoved them into her pockets, her feet crunching in the snow as she looked up and down the road. Nothing. No headlights. No sound but the storm. For the first time in years, Emma whispered aloud, her voice barely a breath, "What now?" And then, through the blur of white, her boot caught on something solid beneath the snow. She stumbled forward, steadying herself. She looked down. Something dark, half-buried, was hidden beneath the frozen ground, something that did not belong there. Emma knelt, brushing the snow away with her numb hands. Her heart quickened, not from fear, but from the sudden spark of curiosity. In the middle of her loneliness, in the heart of the storm, she had found something waiting for her. Something hidden in the snow. Emma's hands were trembling as much from the cold as from anticipation. She held the box close, studying it in the dim light that seeped through the cracks of the old shed. The carvings on the lid, swirls curling into faded initials, seemed almost alive, as if whispering of stories long buried. The rusty lock crumbled at her touch, brittle from years of frost, and with a gentle push, the lid creaked open. Inside, layers of cloth wrapped around something fragile. She peeled them back with care, expecting perhaps trinkets or coins. But instead, she found letters. Dozens of them, bundled with frayed string, edges yellowed with age. A photograph slipped free, a young man in uniform, smiling as if the world were still bright with possibility. Beneath the letters rested a small leather journal, its pages soft and worn, the ink faded but still legible. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she opened the first letter. My dearest. The snow is heavy here tonight, but thoughts of you keep me warm. The words pulled her in instantly. It was a love letter, tender and hopeful, written by a soldier far from home. She turned to another. If I do not return, promise me you will keep living, keep finding joy, for both of us. The shed around her seemed to dissolve as she read, the storm's fury fading into the background. She could almost hear his voice, steady and strong, carrying promises across time. Page after page, she uncovered devotion and sacrifice, the kind of love that survived distance, fear, and uncertainty. Tears welled in her eyes, blurring the ink. She pressed the letters to her chest, feeling warmth seep into her where moments before there had been only cold. These words, written by someone long gone, felt as if they were meant for her, as if the universe had hidden them in the snow until she was ready to find them. Emma realized she wasn't just holding a box of old letters. She was holding proof. Proof that love could endure storms greater than hers, proof that hope could survive even when the world tried to bury it. And for the first time in months, she felt less alone. The storm had not eased, but inside the shed, Emma felt a quiet she hadn't known in months. She sat with the letters spread across her lap, the journal resting gently in her hands. Her fingertips traced the faded ink, her eyes lingering on the soldier's words, even in the darkest winters, love can keep us warm. It struck her how easily those lines could have been written for her. She had been drowning in silence, convinced she was forgotten. Yet here, in a stranger's handwriting, was a reminder that struggles were not unique to her. Others had faced storms, bigger ones, harsher ones, and they had held on with love and hope. Her chest tightened, but it wasn't despair this time, it was recognition. She thought of her mother's warm laugh, of the friend she hadn't called back, of the small kindnesses she had once given freely but had abandoned when her world began to crumble. She realized how long she had let loneliness convince her she had nothing left to give. But that wasn't true. The soldier's words were proof, even when broken, people could still carry light for others. Emma closed her eyes, clutching the journal. For months she had been waiting for someone to rescue her, to notice her pain, to remind her she mattered. But maybe, just maybe, the real rescue began when she chose to carry hope again, the way this soldier had carried his. A strange peace washed over her. She wasn't magically saved, her car was still broken, her future still uncertain, but her heart felt different. Lighter. Stronger. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand, a small smile forming through the exhaustion. The storm outside began to fade into pale dawn. Light spilled through the cracks in the shed, and Emma realized she wasn't alone anymore, not really. She carried the voices of the past, their love and strength echoing in her. For the first time in so long, she whispered not a plea, but a promise. I'll keep going. I'll keep carrying hope. And with those words, Emma felt a fire within her that no storm could put out. By morning, the storm had gentled into a hush, the world blanketed in soft white. Emma stirred in the shed, stiff from the cold but steadied by the warmth she now carried within her. She tucked the letters and journal carefully back into the wooden box, holding it as though it were alive. It felt less like an artifact and more like a gift, a reminder she hadn't known she needed. The crunch of footsteps startled her. She looked up to see a figure approaching through the snow, a man bundled in a heavy coat, his scarf pulled high over his face. He was a local farmer, out early to check on his land after the storm. "Are you all right?" he called, concern etched in his voice as he stepped inside the shed. Emma managed a tired smile. "Car broke down last night. I found this." She held up the box, almost sheepishly, as though it might sound foolish. But the farmer's eyes widened. He reached out, brushing snow from the lid. This belonged to the Parkers. They lived here generations ago. Folks always said their love story was something special. He paused, looking at Emma with a gentleness that mirrored the dawn outside. "Seems it waited a long time to be found." Something inside her softened. It wasn't chance, at least, it didn't feel like it. Maybe the universe had hidden the box in the snow not to remind her of what was lost, but to show her what could always be found: hope, connection, love that transcends time. The farmer helped her back to his truck, its heater blasting blessed warmth. As they drove toward town, Emma cradled the box in her lap, her heart no longer heavy. She knew exactly what she would do. Days later, the box sat in the local museum, displayed with care. Visitors stopped to read the soldier's words, to see the photographs, to feel the power of love that endured. And every time Emma visited, she stood quietly, watching strangers lean in and smile, moved by the same words that had once saved her. Emma realized something profound. Sometimes, when life leaves you stranded in the cold, it isn't the end. Sometimes, it's where you're meant to stumble upon a reminder that love and kindness are never lost, only waiting, just beneath the snow, for someone to find them. And because she had, Emma would never feel alone again.